Hey, welcome. I'm Chris Lord-Alge. We're here at my studio, Mix LA, in beautiful Tarzana, California, and we're talking about studios, music, and where it all began. It didn't begin here, let's put it that way. It began in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey, at H&L Studios in 1976 in front of a MCI console. And that was a MCI 528 with a JH24 tape machine and a full tracking room. And I was an assistant. And I learned quickly about how making records is supposed to be done. And the first thing I learned is that listen to the boss. And it's all about discipline and you know nothing. So we started out in the 24 track world. We skipped 4, 8, and 12 and went and 16 and went right to 24 track. So that was the start point. And my teacher was Steve Jerome, the infamous Steve Jerome, R&B mixer, producer of Walk Away Renee by Left Bank and mixer of Sugar Hill Gang and many other things. So great guy, not with us anymore, but he's mixing up north now, so pretty far up north. So that's how we started. Well, listening to the boss and being the boss. Well, that's a spectrum. I mean, the simple fact of it is that if you listen to the boss enough, you figure out what the game is. And the game is to pay attention and to take a chance and to know your limitations. But be prepared to jump and dance and do whatever needs to be done. Well, I decided the most important thing was to make the leap forward any chance I could get. And to being the boss is all about your attitude. It's all about how confident you are. You can be the boss in the first day, even if you're being told what to do. Being the boss and running a studio is kind of tough because, and I've shied away from it for a long time, is that then you got to worry. I like to just worry about the mixing and the music. When you're the boss, you got to worry about the facility. And that, starts to take you away from what the real job is, and that's making a good snare sound. So as far as Mix LA, I've had it since 2008. So, we're coming up on 9 years here. And I took it from its former glory and its former shell. It's Can-Am Studios, built in 1988. A room was built in, I think, 85. It's probably been here longer. This is a Vincent Van Hoff room, one of his best rooms he's made. So this was kind of his Valley version of Studio A&M. The main reason got involved in this facility was because it was one of those temples of sound about to go under the bulldozer or about to turn into something else. So rather than build something from scratch, I wanted to take something with some history in it and give it a new life. So hence Mix LA, still here, still going. When I first took it over, I just took over this one room, and being the kind of person I am who likes to be in control, I decided I should take the A room also. So I have two full studios here, and I lease the other studio out. He's a great producer. Mike Elizondo has been there a long time, makes great music. 21 Pilots, he's had some great success, and he's a total musician, music lover, and has way more equipment than I do. And I like that about him. So he has a great place to set up all his guitars, basses, keyboards, and be a producer. And then over here, it's just me and my staff. So occasionally my assistants will do stuff here by themselves, but it's generally my personal mix room, lounge, whatever, full service operation. So, well, the simple fact of is I grew up in a certain studio environment. Okay, I really like the fact of having a big room with lots of equipment and lights and dimmers and glass and room out here and gear back here and and a place where people come in and they go, wow, you got so much stuff. And everything that you threw in a drawer at home is nailed to the wall somewhere. Every little tchotchke that you collected is got a place to hang out. Concert tickets, whatever. So I have quite a collection of that because I've been doing this for a while. So that's what I like. Now, this is a different era. A lot of people have a nice little second bedroom with a laptop, a pair of speakers, and a coffee cup. And they do probably more work than I do in a day. But I feel comfortable in the big room that's got the impression. So I walk in and it's like, yeah, I'm impressed. This is my office. This is where I have to do business. And I do it on a large format solid state logic console. Originally installed in this room in 1987. So it's coming up on 30 years we've been keeping her alive. So the generations have changed so much since the 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, where it can be anywhere. A pair of headphones and a laptop, you got a recording studio. And for some guys, if they can get good results that way, then that's great. I'm sure I could do the same. But I prefer to be surrounded by lights and switches and buttons. Lots of them. And meters. Makes me happy. Probably one of the earlier memorable ones might have been Living in America by James Brown when I was with Dan Hartman. This is before there was an SSL in unique recording. So that was on a 528 MCI console that I'd been on in a previous studio. So Living in America mixed on an MCI in Studio B, 1980, maybe it was late 84. And at the time, it was the first song that Dan and I were working on for the James Brown album called Gravity. James Brown's passed away, which is a shame, and it was a talent that it's so hard to define because the talent was in his persona and his rhythm and his attitude and the way he could just make a rhythmic lick happen over and over, and that became a hook. So in Living in America, the most important thing for us was to get the essence of James' rhythm in his performance. So we'd move around his performance to put it like, well, James really wanted it that way. And James wanted it that way. He was just maybe a little anxious. So we just corrected some timing and moved some things around in his vocal comps. I remember that. I think the biggest memory about it was, aside from me getting a mix that I was really happy with and Dan was ecstatic with, it was 7 minutes long. And it had to become 3.5. And when Dan mentioned, we really got to make a really short version of this, that became tricky. Another aspect that people don't know about this, which is another important part of the song, is that Stevie Ray Vaughan is playing guitar in it. Stevie Ray Vaughan, who's passed also, we'd done a guitar overdub session with him in the other studio. So during the whole song, it's just ripping solos in between every line he sings. That maybe someday, if I could get these 2-inch tapes back, I could make a version of the rhythm section and literally a Stevie Ray Vaughan solo section, because he played in the whole record. But of course, it's Scotty Brothers, it's a movie, it's James Brown, and they're real gun shy about lead guitar. No. Now I'm digging it because I'm a young guy and I love guitar. Somewhere on a cassette somewhere is a version with a bit more guitar, but it was really a drag that there's only about this much or a tiny percentage of SRV lead guitar in the song. There's like 2 riffs that point out where it was shredding the whole thing. But after the 7-minute song had to become 3.5, so here I am over at the half-inch machine with Dan and playing it, and it just goes like this. It goes, there's your in, and then there's your out. So I am sitting there editing for a couple hours. The master. Save those pieces. Okay. So I learned a hard lesson that day about arranging and about, wow, you can make anything short if you're not afraid to cut. And he taught me how to edit. And he was really good at where to make these edits work. And we took that thing down to 3.5. And every edit, he'd listen to a section, he'd go, okay, there, okay, there. And every time it would work. And I remember those edits 30 years later, even today, as I did an edit this morning before you got here on something where I said, okay, what would Dan do? And Dan would listen and goes, okay, that'll work there. Okay, that'll work there. And sure enough, I do another Dan Hartman edit every day, and it works. So my big memory was about that. Was there a big Sonic thing I remember? No, because, I mean, it was built really well, and we had a great time with it. And, yeah, it wasn't easy, but we had fun with it. So what I remember the most is Stevie Ray Vaughan and all the edits to make a 7-inch. We moved on from that, and it became mix this and mix that and do more mixing and do some producing. So I either wanted to produce or mix. I really had fun producing. I had fun mixing, but that became the problem coming up. So at that point, then I'm moving into this project where Russ Tyleman's producing Steve Winwood. So he brings in the Winwood record, and he's cutting it from scratch with Steve. And I see that's going to be a long recording process, okay? So already I have my brother Jeff working there with me. So at this point, well, around this time, I have my brother Tom come in. He's doing live sound. He's working in live sound. I'm like, dude, you need to come in the studio and work with me. I need you to work with me in the studio. Let's make records. Don't worry about the live shows. Let's just make records. He had never really been in the studio before. Right away, he started working with me as an assistant. When the Steve Winwood thing came about and I started to work on it, I was already kind of juggling a few other things at the same time, like mixing this Joe Cocker record and starting to co-produce Tina Turner in the other room, that my patience for like sitting through a guitar part was getting a little short. And it's okay, but this was a perfect record to springboard Tom into, so he could bypass go and head right to the good shit. So I thought, you know what? Rather than have Tom go through the coffee cart and the assisting, let's just get him right into the hot seat. And then we're at the same level, because my problem is, like, I want us to be at the same level so we could just divide and conquer. So I couldn't divide and conquer with him if he was an assistant and I was a mixer. Then it wouldn't have been fair. So if I could just fast track him up to my level, then we can just take over. So, you know, I got him in on the Winwood thing, got him to be involved, and, you know, he's good, so he figured it out, made them happy pretty quick. But by working with Steve and working with Russ and Nile Rodgers and all that who were involved in it, got it to the point where he was able to run with it and finish it and mix it, and it became a big record from Grammy winner, became a great, like, transition for him to go from just working with me as an assistant to being at the same level. This way, I could go off and mix Cocker. I could go off and mix produce Tina Turner's record. I could solve my problems. I could solve his problem, and we could all be at the same place. So that was another big chapter, big chapter page right there. And the great part about that is that now he has a relationship with Steve. He's got a hit. We got hits. So you can't mess with us.